So, hello and welcome back. Today, a special topic. It's vouchers and their treatment in value-added tax. Vouchers is something relatively special in VAT because they pose several problems. They can be sold, transferred, for example, as a present or a gift several times, one after another. They can be sold on to other persons for different prices than the nominal price printed on the voucher. They can exist in many different forms. For example, you can, let's say, buy a voucher in paper form, in form of a card, in form of an electronic discount code, or whatever it is. Vouchers can also be sold if they are sold at places which are completely different from where the goods or services in question will be handed over or are at the moment. So vouchers began in the course of time more and more to constitute a problem for VAT. And for this reason, in 2016, the EU inserted some special rules for the treatment of vouchers into the VAT system directive. You know, that famous directive 2006/112 EC or EU EC. And the first rule was Article 38, 30A, sorry, it's late in the afternoon. 30A, that defined the terms voucher, single-purpose voucher, and multi-purpose voucher, which we will come across several times in this chapter and the next ones. Then they established rules what has to be done if single-purpose vouchers or multiple-purpose vouchers are transferred. And they additionally had to modify the rules on the tax base, because there are cases when somebody ending up with a voucher with a nominal value of 20 euro hands it in, gets a price reduction of 20 euro, and nobody knows for which price this voucher was ever effectively really issued in the beginning. So this necessitated additional rules. And just to remind you of the rule for everything in the background, usually the general rule is, again, still applicable here. That is, the tax base is the net amount. That is all what the deliverer or supplier of a service receives minus the VAT amount included therein. So Germany then was faced with these rules and had to implement them into its own legal rules. So in Germany, that's the USTG, the Umsatzsteuergesetz. Germany made these rules part of paragraph 3, and that's why we talk about them, because paragraph 3 is that part of the German Umsatzsteuergesetz, the Value-Added Tax Act, where Germany defines which different forms of deliveries and services have to be distinguished. So in paragraph 3, subparagraph or section 13, you find a general remark what a voucher is. So there you have the taking over of the definitions. 314 then says how a single-purpose voucher has to be treated, and no big surprise, 315 says what has to be done in case of a multi-purpose voucher. And the modification to the tax base rules was inserted as a last but one, I don't remember that exactly, sentence in paragraph 10.1. That was a clarification what has to be done if in case of a multi-purpose voucher the exact amount of the money which was originally paid for it cannot be clearly determined. Now I went over these sources relatively quickly because just reading them without any previous knowledge is not very helpful. So usually to understand the whole stuff, it's a good idea to think about the underlying ideas, which must be known to understand the rules or the system which must underlie these rules. If it's known to you, then you will have it far easier to understand what's going on. So the first basic idea is, which you need to understand, you cannot treat a voucher completely differently from how you treat prepayments or advance payments, which are made for a delivery or a service. The reason is simple, because it makes no difference if you demand a prepayment or a payment in advance from a customer for a service or a good which is clearly determined, and then giving him a piece of paper, a receipt, which confirms I got a prepayment from you, or replacing that piece of paper, confirming a prepayment, by another piece of paper which is nicely headed with the word voucher and gives him a right to hand in this piece of paper and use it as a means of payment later. No difference. The only thing is the word on top. And naturally, that explains why you can't treat the two things differently. Because if you treat them differently, you would give a person the right to freely select how they want to be taxed, either under the rules for a prepayment or under the rules for a voucher. So wherever there is an economic parallel between a voucher and a prepayment with a receipt, you can't afford to have any different outcome in the rules. That's the first important thing you need to know. And if you go on, you must know that for the prepayment or advance payments for goods or services, there is a set of already long-standing rules. You remember the arisal of the tax or tax point is fixed in paragraph 13(1) of the German tax code. And there you have it, that usually the tax is levied at the moment when the supply of the good or the service has happened. However, that prepayments become already taxable at the moment when the payment is made. So, first thing you need to know, prepayments already taxable when the payment is collected, even before service or good or delivery is made. Another rule from jurisdiction is if you prepay for a good or service and then later the good or service is never given to you, then the VAT will only be reduced when the tax base is changed. That means a change of the tax base requires that it's not only announced, but that it has happened. And that means if you prepaid 1,000 euro for a service, then a change in the tax base only will happen if the supplier gives you back the money, when that has happened. Or, because the other alternative, that you made a promise to pay and the supplier renounces on the promise, that cannot happen in case where you prepay, because there you must have had already a payment. So the same should then apply to a voucher. If you pay for a voucher and then you forget to redeem it, as long as the money is not paid back by the seller, the VAT stays in force. So seller doesn't get its money back. And if someone makes a prepayment or an advance payment to an entrepreneur, there is a technical problem. You can only charge VAT for such a prepayment if all the conditions which are necessary to determine the VAT rate and the VAT in detail are already known. For example, if you hand over an amount of 100 euro to a trader and it's not specified for what, so that you can buy at that trader's shop still chocolate or Diet Coke, completely different tax rates, then it's not yet possible to determine how much VAT must be paid out of these 100 euros, which means VAT cannot yet be levied. Simple. So you basically can only interpret that as I made a deposit of 100 euro with that trader and later I can decide for what I use it. It's not yet a prepayment in the strictest sense of the word due to technical things. However, when you make a prepayment to a trader and you decide here are 100 euro and I later can show up and select from all your goods and all your goods are 19%, then it's already clear enough how the VAT treatment of the future purchase will be. Then VAT can already be triggered. Also, that is easy. No? So if you can still select from a whole set of goods which has different rates or is even tax-free, then no chance to levy VAT for the prepayment already. Then it's just a deposit of cash made at the trader's shop, which you can use for later. The same problem shows up if the state to which the VAT will go is not yet clear. Imagine there is a chain of hotels, worldwide or at least union-wide, and now you prepay, let's say 2,000 euro for the right to have a 1 week stay in a hotel from a certain number of hotels in different states. Then it's clear that one cannot yet determine which state will get the VAT, and so the state and the rate is not clear. So you can't yet charge VAT on this prepayment. So this would also be a situation where VAT could not be levied if you get a voucher on that. So prepayment cannot yet be taxed. A voucher which could be redeemed in hotels in different member states, also impossible. You can't yet tax it. So thinking about the prepayment situation already dictates us the most general principle for vouchers. First, if the VAT which will result from the prepayment can already be determined clearly enough, that means which state is clear, which rate will follow is clear, then the VAT should already be demanded when the voucher is issued, because in case of a prepayment you would also demand it now. If on the other hand, from the condition of a voucher, it is not yet clear which rate or which state will be relevant, then no VAT should yet arise. So if a voucher is so general, so unspecific that one of these two aspects, cannot be determined, then not yet VAT liable. And a detail again, in case that you issue a voucher and later the customer forgets to hand it in and the money is kept by the supplier, then there will be no reduction of the VAT because the consideration has not changed. You kept it. Okay. What creates, however, probably an additional dimension specific for vouchers is that vouchers can be sold on to other people. So for this, we evidently need to look for an additional, adequate and easy enough solution. How do we treat this? Good. Furthermore, you need to know that if we think about the treatment, the parallel between vouchers and prepayments, it should also be clear that when you get a so-called voucher for which you didn't pay anything at all, or nobody paid anything at all, this should not be treated like a prepayment. It should be treated as what it is effectively. If you get a voucher, let's say from the marketing department of a store, which entitles you to a discount, and you got it for free, then this is no voucher in the sense of the rules about which we speak. It's just a way to promise you a price reduction if you buy something. So these so-called discount vouchers, I call them now this way, or bonds or coupons, they don't trigger any specific VAT treatment. They are just a price reduction. So when you hand in such a voucher, for example, for a restaurant, they may a marketing campaign, and you find in your post box small piece of paper, if you show it up at our restaurant next week and you bring this coupon, then you get €5 credited on a bill of at least €30. Would be a nice idea. It motivates you to go there, you hand it over, and you don't pay €32 but only 27. This is basically just the promise for a price reduction, so it has no consequences at all. Then in practice you also find the constellation that somebody completely different from the seller or the service provider promises you to subsidize your price. That works in that way that, for example, the producer of cornflakes also places or prints something on the outside or inside of the package and says, hey, if you cut this out and bring to a shop where you can buy my products and hand it in next time, then the trader will reduce your bill by, let's say, the €5 printed on that, and he will do that because I will give him these €5 if he hands me over this coupon. So in that case, we also have no voucher in the sense of VAT, but we have a different constellation again. Somebody else, a third person, not you, not the seller, but a third person subsidizes your acquisition of a product and promises your contract partner to pay an additional amount instead of you. So this is again a completely different situation. Okay. And this overview should make it clear that we have several categories of vouchers which make completely different rules applicable. First, you have the general meaning, or in the colloquial sense, voucher covers a mass of things. So vouchers in the sense of VAT, and these are bought for money. And we distinguish single-purpose vouchers. These are those where the VAT treatment of the future activity transaction can already be determined concretely enough to levy VAT now. And the others are multi-purpose vouchers where the VAT treatment of how the voucher will be used is not yet sufficiently determined to fix levy a VAT. And then you have price reduction vouchers like bonds, coupons. If you show up, you get the reduction in the restaurant if you hand over that paperclip. They are no vouchers at all in the sense of VAT, but just a price reduction. So when we talk of vouchers in the future, never mix them up with the vouchers in the sense of VAT. Again, a completely different movie are also these price subsidizing vouchers or coupons. They are just a subsidy, an additional amount of money paid additionally from a third person, in addition to what you have to pay. And no vouchers at all would be payment cards also, where you load up a car or an electronic wallet. That's not a voucher at all, because this is just a means of payment like a portable bank account or something like that. So that's just another form to store your cash. Also, what is not generally regarded as a voucher would be a ticket for a concert or so. This is already the right to enter. Here you buy already something concrete. So to sum that up, we can establish important definitions already. A voucher is an instrument, either physical or non-physical, so tangible or non-tangible, electronic or in paper form or in card form, anything which carries an obligation to accept this thing, this instrument, as a payment or part of a payment for a supply of goods or a supply of services. Under the condition that this voucher somewhere indicates sufficiently for which supplies it can be redeemed and the terms and conditions how it should be used. That's the legal definition of the EU. So, if we look to what vouchers are, then we have to distinguish between single-purpose vouchers, and these are those where the future use is clear enough to determine the VAT already now. They must therefore cost VAT when they are issued, and the problem which is still outstanding and which we still have to solve is how are these vouchers treated or if they are sold and resold. The other alternative is a multi-purpose voucher. That is where the VAT treatment of the future delivery or service is still unclear. So no VAT yet when they are issued. These will be discussed later, so in a later chapter, and the single-purpose voucher will be discussed immediately afterwards. However, as this will also take a bit of time, I'm reserving that for the next small video. So this overview will be enough for today. So I hope that at least the distinction between the single-purpose voucher and the multi-purpose voucher has entered your brain and does not fall out again. And that you could understand the underlying logic a bit, because that might be helpful. Hope to see you soon again when we go on with discussing how single-purpose vouchers must be treated. Have a good time and don't forget to show up again. And naturally, press the like button. Cause others to press the like button. Convince people to subscribe to the channel and make some propaganda. However, the most important thing is stay well and come back. Goodbye.